All right, welcome everybody. Today's edition is Realty Partners Immediate Buyout Program. And what we wanted to do was provide some context into how we're sort of thinking outside the box during times such as this, where the real estate market has been affected no less by the coronavirus. And what we want to do today is walk through some of those thoughts and processes on how we as a company have adapted to that a little bit, and how we're offering our seller clients an option to sell out their property in an immediate offer, immediate buyout, versus going through the traditional sale process. Along with me on the call today, I have Glenda Bastien. So say hello, Glenda. And also
Hello.
Mr. Rick Frondorf. Say hello, Rick. Make sure you guys' audio is working.
Hello.
All right. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you guys well. Thank you. So Glenda and Rick helped me run the division of our company, which is the offers division. And I don't want you guys to hear offers division and think, oh my God, that's way more than I could ever do. Or I don't want to create a vision. I don't want another payroll. That's not the point of today's webinar. The point of today's webinar is to start small and to think about, hey, is there a way that maybe I could help a seller to sell their home, and maybe you even purchase the home, or one of your investor clients purchase the home, and you still make a commission off of it, versus having to go through the traditional sale process. And that's our conversation point for today. I do want to tell you guys just real quick, we do have, there's a lot of opportunity in doing, some of these offer programs. I'll share with you guys, our goals. Let's see if I can't find it here in just a second. Glenda and Rick, at the beginning of the year, we sat down and figured out, okay, what does it look like in terms of us being able to this year be able to buy and sell the number of homes that we want to. Now, again, this is completely outside of our real estate sales initiative. So this is specifically the initiative for us purchasing homes and then reselling homes as well. I'm gonna see if I can't share my screen here and show you guys this in real time. And Rick, you helped concoct this thing. So when Rick came, so Glenda and I, by the way, have been, just to give you guys some backstory on this, Glenda and I have been running, we used to call the company Titan. We've now since moved it to Jeff Cook Offers. But anyways, we've been running transactions, for a while now, in terms of us buying them and then reselling them, flipping them, holding some for rentals. The division grew. Rick came along to help us analyze properties and also manage all of the agents on our team on how they go about acquiring these properties. And at the beginning of the year, these guys created this. I said, let's dream big this year. And so they said, well, let's do 111 transactions. And then if we do 111 transactions, what that means is we actually buy and sell 111 properties, then that potentially would yield, 2.2 million in profit, which is awesome. And Rick, I think you were the one that kind of came up with this. Tell us, a little bit about, the thought behind it and what that looks like and all that.
Yeah, sure. Of course, we always want to dream big, right? And when I'm crunching the numbers on these deals, and the agents know when they bring these, ideally we want to have a $30,000 or better profit on paper in the beginning. Well, oftentimes that 30,000 turns into something less. So you can do the math on this, and so 2.2 million profit on 111 deals that should work out to be $20,000 profit average. So wanted to kind of have an average in there that was achievable, and I think 111 deals with the number of certified agents that we have that have gone through our training program on this, I think it's doable, in addition to just other marketing and just aggressive steps we're taking to get people to call in, billboards, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to do the math on it, we go into a deal expecting 30,000 plus profit. And we hope for that. And some deals we've done this year, I've seen 50,000 profit this year. I've seen a lot of that. So with that being said, we go into it, but worst case scenario, you're saying we settle on $20,000 profit. And so the idea is that 111 deals times 20,000 comes up to the 2.2 million. Am I right on that? Do I have the numbers right?
That's right.
Awesome. All right. Sounds good. And Glenda, share with us. I don't know that we're quite halfway to our goal, but I think we, or at least a third of the way there. Tell us a little bit about how we're doing for the year and kind of what that process is looking like so far.
We're pretty much on track for the year. We're always busy. We're always having deals coming in, deals going out, the rehabs. We have meetings on a Tuesday and Thursday with our agents. We're having the Zoom calls right now. And there's a lot of activity out there. I think with people being at home, they're looking at their house a bit differently. And if they're in a bad situation before the coronavirus, they're realizing that when this is over, then they need to do something with the house. So there's a lot of activity that we're getting a lot more calls from people that are just looking for different options rather than just maybe putting it on the market and waiting for a buyer. They need some action now. So it's good that we have this in place because we have a lot of different ways that we can help the sellers. It's not just the one traditional way. We've got a lot more tools in our tool belt that we can help them. Yeah. And that's what we've spent the last few months training with our agents so that we're ready for the spring.
So really what it boils down to is we are talking with sellers about A, wearing our listing hat, or B, wearing the purchasing hat. So whenever a seller calls us up through traditional marketing, and by the way, the 100 houses we're going to buy this year, 111, excuse me, I mean to sell short, but the 111 that we're going to do this year, I would say 80 plus of them have came as referrals from real estate agents. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
We've done a ton of marketing. I'll share this with you. We've done a ton of marketing through our offers company, and that would account for the other 20 or 30 deals. But the majority of our referrals are coming from real estate agents, namely real estate agents that are on our team. And so we had an idea a while back. We said, it was a funny story. I remember the tipping point for me. I never will forget this. It was Brian Wilson on our team. And, he came to me and told me that there was this listing that, he didn't really want to list because it was kind of a dog and it was only in a subpar price range for what we normally service. And then said, hey, they're just really looking for somebody just to kind of buy it outright. And I asked him how much equity was in the home. And it was a damn lot. It was like 75,000. And so anyway, he took 24, 48 hours to call the people back. By that time I was like, dude, let's buy it. We'll just buy the house, but he was wearing his listing hat. Right. And so I remember that by the time he called back, unfortunately, we had lost the deal. Somebody else had already bought it or they'd already did something else with the house. And I remembered, I was like, at that point in time, as real estate agents, we've got to train our team and we have to be thinking about whenever we approach a seller, whether it be on the phone, whether it be Zoom, whether it be at the kitchen table, we have to be thinking, hey, what options do these sellers want? Do they want us to traditionally sell their house? Or do they want us to potentially purchase it or arrange for an investor to come in and have it bought? And so at that point in time, we started training all of our agents. And I believe at this point, we've got 51 of our agents that are certified to at least be able to sniff out a transaction and bring that to you guys for you guys to help, get that to fruition and get that to the table. And so that's where, again, 80% of our deals are coming from is from sellers that may just want to sell their house. Now, what's important is that you guys may think, hey, coronavirus may bring a few new opportunities for this, and that's why this webinar is timely. And I believe that too, but I just want to address one thing. We did, I think up to this point in the year, we're somewhere in the, I don't know, Glenda, you know better than I do. How many transactions have we either acquired, sold, or in the process of getting out? Do you have any idea, rough number? Is it?
Happening so quick.
I would guess 40.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're about 38, 39.
38, 39. So let's call it 40, which is about 1/3 of the way to our goal. We're about 1/3 of the way through the year. We're about 5 months out of the 12 months so far gone. So anyways, the point I want to get at is that 2/3 of the deals that we've done, probably 80% of the deals we've done up to this point were pre-coronavirus, which means that the market was the hottest it's been in 10 years, which means that sellers weren't willing to give up equity, which means that there wasn't a way for us to acquire a property with enough margin in it, so-called $30,000 margin that we were talking about at the beginning of the call. And I just want you guys to hear loud and clear that we did that 30-something times prior to the coronavirus hitting or prior to a seller feeling like they were in a distressed situation. Now let's fast forward past coronavirus. Lord willing, that's sometime soon. Hopefully by the time some of you guys watch this video, that day has came and gone. And the reality is that that's going to create even more opportunities for us to be able to sit down with a seller and offer them an immediate buyout program. An immediate buyout would be us going to a seller and saying, look, instead of you putting your house on the market, tracking buyers through post-virus or allowing showings to happen, why don't we just purchase your home for a pre-agreed price on a date in which you want to move out? And then we will help you in transitioning and we'll purchase your house on discount. I think it's almost like whenever somebody carries the car they've been driving for the last 2 or 3 years. The funny story, Rick could tell you this. A couple of years ago, he called me up. He goes, I'm excited to go buy a car. So we go down there to the car dealership. We buy a car. I remember it. I went with him. We were in there 4 hours that night trying to negotiate a deal. And anyways, we came out and great. And I was like, well, dude, I love it. I was like, well, so anyways, point being, we bought the car less than, 2 years later, he's done trade the thing in and bought the brand new model, right? And so he gave them the old car back and then he drove the new one off the lot, right? And what was more important to him was ease of transaction, because he's a busy guy, but probably also either keeping the payment the same or maybe even lowering the payment a little bit. Losing a little bit of equity in the car wasn't his primary concern because he's ready to move on. And a lot of sellers out there feel the same way. It's just like trading in a car. A lot of sellers understand if I just trade in my house and I'm able to then move at my leisure when I want to, maybe not have to complete repairs, maybe not have to change the oil or put new tires on the car, just kind of give it back like it was. I understand that I'm giving it back on a discount as to if I went up and put it and tried to sell it myself and take months and go through a traditional sale in tip-top shape. All right. And so the reality here is that a lot of real estate sellers are the same way. They say, you know what, if I don't have to go through and do some of the honey-do list things, or if I don't have to go through the process of traipsing buyers through my house, I may be willing to sell it in on trade it, which means maybe 15, 20% less than what it is. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but the reality is that, again, we don't do transactions, and our area is not unique. We're buying transactions all across the whole state. It's not just a city. I mean, our city's hot. We're at a seller's market. It's only 3 months worth of inventory here, 2.5 months worth of inventory here. We're in a hot market, but there are some sellers that would prefer, maybe they inherited the house, maybe it's divorce, unfortunately. Maybe it's I took a job, I need to move, I need to transfer, whatever it may be. I need to move and I need to move fast. So therefore, please take my house so that I can move and go do that. Because whatever I want to go do is more important than the problem that I currently have. Those are the people that we're looking out for. And so, Rick, I want to bring you in just real quick. Whenever, we train these agents up, and Glenda's going to walk through a little bit of the process here in a minute. But whenever we train these agents up and we're sitting down and explaining to them, whenever you go to a kitchen table, like what are some of the things you listen out for? Whether in deciding whether you put your investor hat on, your real estate agent hat on, how does that process work from the agent standpoint? And then how do they get you into that transaction to help you turn that into a deal?
Yeah. So sitting at the kitchen table or the kitchen table talk, and it could be walking around the house or on the, as they're getting a tour, but it's training, it's fine tuning their ears to what the people are saying. Some things to listen for are, what kind of speed they want the transaction to take place. When do they need to get to their new destination? Are they in some sort of financial distress? Looking around the house, if you see that there's a bunch of repairs that are needed, and they make a comment about, they lost their job and, whatever. And they, so a lot of the deals that we get are people that the houses are in disrepair and they don't have the money to fix it. And so going to the house as a listing agent first is important. And then the ease of switching hats or changing the flow of the conversation just by merely asking, well, what is it you're trying to do? What do you need to get out of this house? What do you want to get? And then there's, there's ways to structure a deal and even through time create equity. And so what the agents do is they gather that information as they're on a fact-finding mission, and they bring it back to our Tuesday, Thursday meeting where they call me, tell me what the deal is, and we structure. In many cases, we'll structure 2 and even 3 offers.
Yeah, you said something that's important there. Over time, you create equity, and that's an interesting concept that a lot of times I didn't fully understand until we got into it. But what he means by that is that if a seller calls us up and says, you know what, I need to sell this house, I want to list it, and I want to break even. All right. And let's say, for example, let's just use ease of math numbers. Damon, thank you for joining us. Let's say we're not in Damon's market, so we're over 100,000. I'm kidding, Damon. But let's just say for ease of math that we're a $200,000 list price. Okay. And let's say the seller owes, I don't know, 178. Let's just make that an easy number. They may accept a 195 when it's all said and done, minus some commissions, minus some closing costs. That's going to get them about $180 minus, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 in repairs. They're breaking even at 178. Okay. And the seller says, dude, if you can just get me break even and I don't have to bring any money to the closing, I'm a happy camper. Okay. How many people have ever heard that story before? What if we took over the payments on that house? There's not enough equity there for us to bring cash. But what if the seller said, hey, you know what? You take over the payments, you make the payment on the house, and in 2 or 3 years, the house may go up to 210, 215. The mortgage balance may go down. So instead of 178, we now have 175. And in that time, we rent the house out, or even put a rent to own buyer in there. And they buy it for 210, 215, 2 or 3 years down the road. We only owe 175 in it. We've now created a $35,000, $40,000 margin in a house that the seller decided, hey, I just need to break even. And so let's say we actually acquired that house versus going through the listing process. If we went through the list process, and let's just say that we took 6 apples, and then let's say that we split that out with a buyer's agent, we may make, I don't know, after splits and everything, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 commission. Whereas if we take it the distance, hold on to it for a couple of years, rent it out, we may make 25, 30, 35,000 on the same house. So that's what he's saying by taking time to create equity in the house. All right. Now, in addition to that, there's other times where a seller knows that they're selling their house on discount, and we make sure that everybody's very clear on this. We have them sign what's called a financial detail summary sheet, which says, this is what you're selling the house to us for. This is how much it's worth. We intend to resell it for a profit. And this is about how much profit we would make. We make every one of these people sign one of those things because we're not hiding the fact that their house is worth less or more than what it really is. Okay, so we're making them sign that. They don't do the deal. It's not a win-win-win transaction. We're not doing the transaction. I won't forget the first transaction that me and Rick did. I don't know if you remember it, Rick. I'm sure you do. 935 Lansing. It was a house that this gentleman sold to us for $235,000. And that was a good bit more than we wanted to pay. And I don't mean that because there wasn't a lot of equity in it. I mean that because it was a lot of money that me and Rick didn't really have at the time. So we were thinking, well, let's renovate this house. Let's try to get a renovation budget going and let's go the distance. I never will forget, we had a guy come along and offer us an as-is price of $400,000. Now keep in mind, we bought it for $235,000. He came along and offered it for $400,000. And then he went in and fixed it up and resold it for $600,000. True story. I never will forget it. And it was a very hot area of town, but that's how it went. Now, some people may say, well, it's good for you as the middle guy, and it's good for the guy at the end, but what about the seller? The seller only got $235,000. If they would have sold it with someone else, they could have gotten more. Here's the deal. The seller needed $235,000 to get invested into the retirement home to stay there for the rest of his life. That was the most important thing to him, and he needed it to happen immediately because himself and his wife, himself more so than her, were ill, and he needed to move on. And she needed a place to live, and he wanted to achieve that before he got sick enough where he couldn't help her anymore. And so whenever you understand the motivation of a client and what's in the best interest of a client may not be always the thing that you would choose to do if it were your property. And so the reality is we said to the guy, look, we can put this thing on the market. We could potentially sell it for a higher price. We don't know, but we know for a fact that we could close at $235,000 and get you to your goals and dreams. And then the headache is ours from then forward. Now this house was Hoarder's House 101. I think it was about 8 dumpsters that we pulled out of this house. I never will forget, we took the picture off the wall. We thought the walls were yellow, but behind the picture, it was white because everything else was coated in nicotine. So it was that bad. But the house was in really bad shape. We almost fell through the floor. But the point I'm getting at is all of that is that there was some equity in the house. But the most important thing to the seller didn't have money to fix that house up. He didn't have the money to do it. He also didn't have the emotional bandwidth to do it. And he didn't have the health to do it. So the most important thing to him was to get his $235,000 and make sure that both him and his wife were set up for the remainder amount of time that he had left on this earth. And when you think about that, it's like, you know what? We did him a huge service by helping him achieve his goals and dreams. Okay. And so I just want you guys to understand that sometimes houses are sold on discount. Sometimes you create equity through time. Okay. That's really what Rick was getting at there. Glenda, I want to bring you in real quick. You had shared with me a couple of slides you put together here. I'll pull them up on the screen. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about, Jeff Cook offers and what you guys have built over time there and kind of what that process looks like. Can you guys see the screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen there. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that find themselves in situations that they just need action right now, and they can't wait for a buyer on the traditional market. And this is a presentation that we're working on when you have agents sat across from the seller and they decide that the traditional side isn't going to work for them. This is what Jeff Cook Offers does. And if they want to avoid putting their house on the market, making repairs, real estate commissions, waiting for a buyer, then we can definitely help. And these are some of the areas that we've helped before. We've helped people in divorce, if they've got 2 mortgage payments, a job loss, even disgruntled landlords that have decided that, hey, I've got a portfolio of properties, I don't want to do them anymore, but I'm used to the cash flow. How can we help them? There's a lot of different ways that we can help people. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. It's not always the one way. So we work with the sellers to actually find what they want, and then we can make our offers based on what's right for them. It's got to be a win-win. It's got to be a win for them and a win for us as well. We never take on anybody else's problems. If we can't help, we can't help. But 9 times out of 10, there is something that we can do to help. And it's got to be a win for us as well. We're not embarrassed that we're a for-profit company, because we are the ones taking the risk. We are the ones finding the solution, and we're getting paid for the knowledge that we can bring to their problem. We actually have 51 agents, and we have our 3 core values that our agents work from. They keep their word. They treat all people with dignity and respect, because nobody knows, what situation any of these sellers are going to be in. Sometimes they're embarrassed. Sometimes, they don't ask for help until right at the very end. And we always think about things differently. We're always looking at creative ways to solve their problems. And that's why we get paid, because we're solving their problems that maybe nobody else can. And we keep it real. We let them know, like Jeff said, they sign the financial detail summary. This is how much we're going to make, because we're the experts in this field. We're a locally owned company. We're people helping people. We give them peace of mind, and we're in it together. I mean, it's not just their problem. If we can help, then it's a partnership. They've tried everything else and now partner with us. So we're here to help them. And they like that. There's no judgment. We buy 3 to 4 houses a month, and we can work on their terms. A lot of people, when they're in difficult situations, the distressed sellers, they're being told, you have to do this or you can't do this. But we're saying, hey, we can work on your terms. If you need to move quickly, once we have our inspections and the title search is done, you pick the move out date, and we can work around your time frame. There's no showings or open houses. They don't have to do anything to the house. They don't have to make any repairs. There's no fees. We pay nearly all of the closing costs. And these are the next steps. And it's just very clear for them to understand, what we do, what the next steps are, and let's figure it out together. It's very much a partnership. And these are three ways that we bought properties. The first one, somebody was relocating out of state. They didn't want to list it traditionally, so we were able to cash them out for a discount. The second one was the seller financing. This is where we make payments over 30 years every month. This is something really good that works for her and works for us. She can spread her tax liability, and we can rent that property out for a period of time. And then taking over payments, you know, this was where there wasn't much equity in this house, but we were able to go in, make payments, and they were able to walk away and not pay any commissions. So there's lots of different options that we can give. And again, whatever the seller wants, that's how we work out our offers to see which one works for them. And at the very bottom, this is the most important. We work out what their motivation is. Is their motivation they can't afford the price? Do they want a fast closing? Are they going towards pre-foreclosure? Tired landlords, they don't want to pay fees. There's too many repairs. Some flexible payment options, or there's two mortgage payments. What is their pain point? Why are they wanting to do something different than the traditional way? And it's not always about the price. Sometimes they just want their problem to go away.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Glenda. I'd like to go into just a little bit more detail here because a lot of people are thinking, okay, well, if we have a situation come up, right, and we want to try to help the seller do an immediate buyout, like how do we even begin, right? And so just trying to understand this. I know that you guys also do events, and we have, coaching for this type of thing and all of that stuff, to help people create offers programs. There's a lot of detail into it. I mean, what we normally teach in a 3 or 4 day class, we're putting into a 30-minute webinar here. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is that people understand the opportunity and see how we're pitching it to a seller. But what is it that we need to really focus on to be able to try to get these transactions to the table in the midst of Corona? What is the opportunity going to look like kind of moving forward? Glenda, I'll let you take that one.
I think it's really just sitting down with the seller and working out what is the problem, where do they need to go, where are they moving to, and just building that rapport with them. I know in the beginning it's very easy to kind of like work from a script and get them on the phone and think about, oh, okay, well, I've got a seller here, I need to talk to them, and are they going to list it traditionally? But with our agents, we very much ask them to build a rapport with the seller in the beginning and to see what the pain point is for that seller and to work out and just listen, because things that work for one seller don't necessarily work for another. So just kind of listen and see where they get to. And like I said, there's a lot of different options that we can help. Taking over the payments, doing a lease option, cash, seller finance, but just really listening to that seller and seeing what they need.
Rick, I want to finish up with you. As far as trying to, understand the opportunity coming up, pre-Corona, as I mentioned earlier, we had a ton of opportunity. I think that this year we've acquired 37, 38 properties so far, prior to there really being in a stress situation in the midst of a seller's market, right? So opportunities kind of coming out of the back end of this thing. What does that look like from your standpoint?
Yeah, so I'm anticipating a lot more opportunities coming to the table in that, God forbid people have lost their jobs, and, if the average household is, less than 60 days away from bankruptcy, I mean, if somebody loses their job and can't make a payment for a few months, I mean, that's really going to put them in a financially distressed situation. And those are a lot of the calls that we get. Someone who will, maybe they say, we're just going to regroup for a few years and we're going to go rent something. We just need somebody to take payments over. And I feel like we're going to see a lot more of those But yeah, like Glenda was saying, structuring the deals in understanding what the buyer or what the seller's motivation is important. Do they need to go and regroup for a few years, and can we, and that's a situation we can take over payments. Is it a tired landlord and the property's been paid off for a long time and they just don't want the headache anymore, and maybe we can get a seller financing on that and pay them and create even more equity to ourselves over time. But yeah, we should be looking at more of these opportunities going forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and the last thing I wanted to share is, and for those of you guys that got on here a little bit late, each one of the properties that we aim for, we always aim for about a $30,000 profit on the takeout. And sometimes that turns into 20 because of the oops factor that we call it internally. So sometimes that tends to happen. You find stuff in walls you didn't intend to find or whatever. But for those of you guys that feel very overwhelmed by trying to think of how can I buy a house, I don't have the cash to buy a house. What if you got it under contract and then had an investor come in and buy it for the upside from you and completed the closing? And that way you made an immediate quick commission, AKA bird dog fee, wholesale fee, whatever you want to call it, these different things. And then the investor made some money. Your client was able to move on quickly, and you made some in the middle until you get your feet wet, until you get comfortable, and then you could potentially take down one of your own transactions, right? And so a lot of people start there and kind of grow. And I just want to also just mention again that we don't go out and advertise for a ton of these deals. We have a couple advertising pieces out there for these transactions, but most of the people that bring these deals to the table for us are real estate agents that are on our team. Real estate agents that are out meeting with sellers, talking to sellers, and whenever they determine, hey, you know what, it's actually better that they sell this house immediately versus do a traditional list and sale. That's where the majority of these referrals are coming from. But that took a fair amount of conditioning for us to help our agents to understand the opportunity on this and also to be able to see that as a potential opportunity. So I encourage you just to not be overwhelmed by the fact that we've got a division now that does this. Remember, to keep in mind, 4 years ago, Glenda and I started on our first transaction together. True story. Glenda and I first started on our first one, and then Rick and I did one, and then we sort of came together. And at this point, we've served over 230 families total by helping them getting transitioned and getting their property sold when they otherwise either couldn't or didn't have the resources to be able to fix it up enough to be able to get it sold. So that's 235 transactions in 4 years that we've been able to do that didn't fit into the traditional mold of traditional real estate. They weren't going to go down the traditional selling techniques. They weren't going to, go down the traditional buying techniques. People that we've helped buy homes that couldn't buy. Think about this. With the lending guidelines getting a little tighter moving forward, let's say somebody has a 600 credit score. They're in the process of rebuilding. They may even have a down payment. Some lenders, a lot of lenders right now are turning that file down. 2 months ago, they weren't turning that file down. A lot of lenders right now are turning that file down. What if that person could do a rent to own and a property that you've just purchased, and within a year or two, they go ahead and get their credit score up to a 680, the entire money market out there completely rebounds, everybody's happy, go lucky, they're able to get the loan. You've helped this person achieve home ownership, and you've made a nice healthy profit along the way, and you've helped the seller of the house be able to get transition when otherwise they maybe couldn't. And as a result of that, maybe the person that bought the house was willing to not be such a nitpicky person about the repairs, or maybe not worry about the condition of the house because you're helping them find financing in a home when they otherwise didn't have a way to turn. So these 235 people that we're telling you about that we served in the past couple of years, those are people that otherwise didn't have the ability to traditionally sell or traditionally buy. And that makes us feel really warm and fuzzy on the inside because we're able to take this and pair it up with our regular real estate company. In addition to serving all the families that they serve on the traditional side, now we're able to serve a large number on the non-traditional side. And so it's a win-win-win all the way across the board. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comment section here. We're streaming this out to Facebook, so we'll be checking on our Facebook page. Make sure that you share this with somebody that might be interested. Please click like on our Facebook page or interact in there. We'll be happy to answer any specific questions that you have. And also be on the lookout. We're going to be doing some upcoming webinars on training sessions in more detail, boot camps, maybe even on how we go about doing this in more detail. So this is Jeff Cook. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Realty Partners Nation. See you guys at the top from the top. Have a great day.